I have one more question for Minister Goyal, but I also want to introduce Anish Shah, who heads the Mahindra Group as its Managing Director and Chief Executive. So Anish, welcome. I want to go back to Piyush Goyal about, you were saying that 2 trillion will come from exports. You also had the 30 trillion number, which a lot of people then said, "Kya bol rahe hain Piyush ji, 30 trillion abhi kahan pe hum log pahuche?" Given that the government didn't meet the 5 trillion target at the date. Now, of course, the pandemic happened and so many other things happened, which were a black swan kind of event, and that pushed you back, but it didn't happen at the timeline that you said. Is this a former investment person, a former chartered accountant, just trying to talk up the India story? Because ultimately, the credibility of what a government or a minister says depends on then the ability to get that target done. One thing is to talk up spirits, the other is to actually make it happen given that timeline. That's question number one. Question number two is on demand. The one question being asked is whether there is enough in the budget to actually spur demand. Your opponents will say that because there is unemployment, people don't have money, it's a K-shaped recovery, therefore there isn't as much consumption demand and the budget doesn't do adequate to spur that. So respond to both of those and then I go across to Anish.
I'll just make one housekeeping correction. You don't become a former chartered accountant. I'm a chartered accountant for the rest of my life, Rahul. So please don't take that away from me. But on a more serious note, first of all, my current exports need to grow at about 9% in merchandise and about 16% in services to achieve the 1 trillion of services and 1 trillion of merchandise exports by 2030. It's a matter of fact, statistical calculation. It's not something out of the top of my head. And it's been shared with all the export promotion councils, with all the large exporters, including Mr. Anish Shah's company, Mahindra Group, which is a large player in the world markets. And by and large, the feedback I get is that as we are delivering on the free trade agreements, as India's own competitive spirits, competitiveness is improving and our animal spirits are getting more and more activated. As India is becoming an easier place to do business, as our startups and technology and innovation is finding center stage in the world, as the world is looking to diversify to, let's say, friendshoring or looking for trusted partners, I think the global stars are actually aligning themselves to support us in our ambitious plans. So, first of all, most doable export target, you need not worry. The 30 trillion is also on a business as usual scenario. And by the way, it's one of my calling cards when I go negotiating a free trade agreement. With 1.4 billion people aspiring for a better quality of life, with nuclear families and more women coming into the workforce, the demand for goods and services in India is going to present huge opportunity, both for Indian domestic production and wherever we are not competitive, even for other countries to support us. So I'm very confident, given our historical track record, our own economy over the last 30 years has grown 11.8 times in a situation where it was not easy to do business, where foreign investments were low, India's macroeconomic fundamentals were weak, inflation was in double digit. Despite all that, we are now 11.8 times what we were 30 years ago. So when I talk of a $35 trillion economy from a $3.5 trillion economy now, let's say 25 years down the road, it's absolutely and eminently doable. And let me tell you, it will happen. And I hope to live to see that happen, as I hope you do.
Oh, absolutely. It will be fantastic if it does. It will be even more fantastic if you can make it happen in the timelines that you've laid. That would be great for everyone who is a part of this India story.
100%.
Okay, thank you very much.
100% we will make it happen. And under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, I assure you the people of India also believe it will happen.
Okay, we leave it over there. Minister Goyal, thank you very much for joining us. I want to tell our viewers that we have P. Chidambaram, the former finance minister, a man who's actually made 9 budgets. So he knows a thing or two about making budgets. He'll be speaking to us in a moment from now. I want to get a word in from Anish Shah on the expectation now shifting towards India Inc. The government says we have done enough and more. Allocation on capital expenditure for public goods, public infrastructure increased once again in a very big way. The one thing that everyone in government and outside are waiting for is for the India Inc. investment cycle to kick off. You know, we've been hearing from a lot of commentators, top CEOs, pundits, there's a lot of discussion happening in boardrooms, and everyone's wondering when will that when will the discussion actually lead to decisions, and decisions ultimately result in investments?
So to start with, I would say this is an outstanding budget. It's disciplined, it is growth-oriented, sustainable, and inclusive. You mentioned the capital expenditure part, and that is a very important element in this budget, not just from a headline perspective of a 33% growth, but also because it's gone up from 1.67% of GDP to 3.3% in the last 4 years. And in the history of India, we've never seen 4 consecutive years of increase in this manner in capital expenditure. It has a multiplier of 3x. So there are various factors that are very positive. And to address specifically the question around, has the government done enough? I would say it has. We've seen a number of initiatives around PLI, around tax rationalization, making business easier. Even in the budget, there were a number of provisions in the print around making business easier to do. And it is up to the private sector. We are at this point in time doubling capacity in the auto business. We are halfway there, and we should get to the rest in the next 12 months or so. We are adding 60% capacity in our tractor business. So we are at a point where industry has to step up, has to do a lot more, and we're in a position to do that.